What's up, everybody? This is the Daily Fantasy Insiders TV show sponsored by FantasyElite, the app that you get in the App Store. Here are the guys that are leading today's charge, Derek Carty and Davis Maddock from FantasyInsiders.com. Guys, you had a pretty good weekend. Davis, you had a good Monday today, right?
Like as in today?
Yeah, as in like you were on Roto World.
Oh, yeah. I actually feel terrible and have been like sleeping and taking medicine because I think I'm getting sick. But that part was cool.
Why are you getting sick? From your girlfriend?
No, probably because I rarely sleep. I would assume that would be part of why I sort of always feel like I'm sick, is because I just don't sleep and work on fantasy sports 16 to 18 hours a day.
Fair enough. Derek, did you have a good weekend?
Not especially. I made some rookie mistakes that cost me some money this weekend, so I was not happy about it, as I'm sure a lot of you could tell in the Skype chat.
Yeah, I was right there with you on that.
I mean, everyone who didn't go stack Stros was really disappointed with themselves, basically. I even tried to go stack Stros so hard that I used Stros that weren't even in the lineup. So, that was what I was working with yesterday, was a min-priced Jesus Guzman who apparently had, like, a sick tummy or something.
Yeah, he was not in the lineup, actually. Dominguez, though, Dominguez was in the optimal, and I ran it too early in the day, and I didn't rerun it. And
I don't want to toot my own horn, but if anyone read the Daily Diamond content yesterday on Fantasy Insiders, it murdered.
Yeah, Davis got all of them right.
I got all
except for Buster Posey.
Yeah, I did forget to. But out of all 5 of the catchers I ranked had good games. So if you knew nothing about daily fantasy baseball and just used my rankings, you still would have cashed.
Swag. You are so swaggy. You're Davis, you're adorable. I love you.
As I scratch my neck beard. Thank you. Thank you, Kitchen. I haven't shaved in a while. I'm really committing to the homeless fantasy football writer who lives, in a basement.
No, there's some news today in the New York and now the Colorado lineups. You guys want to get to that?
Yes.
Let's do it.
So, no McCann or Tex in the New York lineup.
Yep.
And then, reading no Tulo or Morneau today in that Rockies lineup. So that's interesting.
Oh, that changes everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, that Rockies lineup is kind of weird looking. Rutledge second, Paulson. I don't even know who that is. Batting 6th.
Oh, I bet he's cheap though.
Oh, he's proud. If he's even listed,
he's not. He's not on DraftKings.
Yeah,
I'll have to go look on
it looks like
FanDuel.
he doesn't have a FanDuel or a DK price rather.
Okay.
Which is unfortunate.
Does it look like he has a FanDuel price or no?
I lost the tab. Here it is. FanDuel. He does not. So he's out of play. I don't know.
That's
I feel
unfortunate.
like it's not like I'm looking to go super heavy on Rockies anyway. I mean, obviously it's in cores and they have a lot of lefties in that lineup, but Fister's a good pitcher. So I think you're definitely looking more at the Nationals than you are at the Rockies tonight.
And they're just so expensive. Oh, they're just and the problem is now with Harper back is they're squeezing in a lefty who probably doesn't super need to be in there, especially because.
Oh yeah, there is a lineup. Okay.
I haven't even seen it, but I guarantee you, is Harper batting 6th?
Harper's not playing.
Oh, okay. Well, that changes everything again. Because right now, to be quite honest, I'm just looking at my own lineups and working on those. So let's give the people some information that they can actually use, and let's talk about pitching real quick.
Hold on, I'm looking at this Nationals lineup, and I'm so upset. Why is Danny Espinosa playing instead of I was really hoping to see a Scott Harrison appearance, which I know was unlikely, but if you're gonna sit Harper, come on, Espinosa's the guy you're putting in there.
Espinosa will be he's That is like the Mark Ellis Memorial play. The guy who, like, at best you can hope for 0.25 points from, but in Coors he all of a sudden has like 2 out of the 4 games while they're there where he has 6 FanDuel points.
Maybe, but I mean, he's batting 8th, so it's not even like his speed is really going to be a factor. Like, it just seems like a waste. I know they like him defensively.
He's also 3K on DraftKings, so that's a lot of savings.
He's the minimum on FanDuel. He's 2,200.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Let's real quick before we talk about pitchers. Let's have a little course field discussion. So, like, I know that a couple times I've gotten into spats with people on Twitter. They're like, "There's nothing scientific about just playing everything at Coors. Like, that's not going to end well." It was mostly when the Twins and the Padres were there. Like, those are really bad offenses, right? Like the Twins, we maybe thought were kind of good for a while, but they've sort of regressed to their means of their career averages. And the Padres are the worst offense of the live ball era. Like, truly, they have the lowest on-base percentage out of any offense in the live ball era. But they were good in Coors. They scored, 6 runs and 7 runs in 2 of the games, and then they were bad the other game. And the Twins were fine, too. And so, yeah, Danny Espinosa's pretty terrible. Still probably going to use him on FanDuel for the minimum. I'm still probably going to make that move because I don't care that he's batting 8th.
Well, I think you have to care, and I don't think like it should be. My mouse cord is all tangled. I don't think it should be like a hard and fast rule where you're just playing whoever in Coors and stacking like whatever you want. I mean, I do think you need to follow the process, and a lot of times the process is going to lead you to those guys, but I don't think it's just like an automatic you throw them in there. And I think this year, like, it's just so exaggerated because not only are you getting the effect of Coors Field, you're getting the effect of the Rockies having one of the worst pitching staffs of the past decade.
Yeah,
like, they don't have
all those guys are just
like,
terrible.
When you compound the two, like, it's just ridiculous. Like, then a lot of those guys almost are must plays. So really, that's why it is. It's not like that Coors is just so ridiculous. Like, Coors is a really good park that has pitchers that should be in Double-A.
And not only is their pitching bad, but Franklin Morales was so bad that he wasn't even allowed to be in this awful pitching rotation until they started suffering injuries. Like, that's what happened. The reason he's getting pitched right now is because they decided to tell Eddie Butler, who's a real prospect, "Listen, dude, we don't want you to be involved with the terrible mire that is this ball club right now, so we're going to send you down to Double-A and throw Franklin Morales to the Wolves for half a season."
Yeah, I mean, that's what a lot of these guys are doing up here. Matzik and Flande or Johan. Yeah, Flande's
and Friedrich.
Yeah, and Friedrich, like those guys, like Colorado. I mean, it's not like they had good pitching to start with, but like these guys are like their 7th, 8th, 9th options. Like, they've lost guys, like they've lost decent pitchers, like Jordan Lyles earlier in the year and Chacin, and like guys who are like at least capable major league arms. They just don't have the luxury of them anymore.
Yeah.
And the bullpen too, like, it's awful. Like, it's not just the starters. So it's just
don't get me started because Ottavino.
Aside from Ottavino, he's the only capable arm in the entire 25-man roster of Rockies.
And he only comes in when it's like the guy that you need to just get like a double, like just like an RBI double. Will cash you in all your double ups, and Ottavino comes in and retires him on like 4 pitches, and it's so frustrating. He's so frustrating. That's probably enough course talk though. Let's talk about the starting pitchers for the day. And I don't know if I kind of haven't been in contact with anyone that much today. Have you landed on Sale as your guy, or are you leaning Tehran?
Right now I'm leaning Sale, especially since it looks like there's some maybe smallish weather concerns in the Tehran game. I'm going to run lineups for both, I think, and kind of see what I feel like. And I'm definitely going to have exposure to both across, whatever sites I play on, probably just FanDuel and DraftKings tonight. But I think Sale is going to be like the guy that I own heaviest. At least that's the way I'm leaning right now.
Yeah. I'm definitely on board with Sale as the second guy. I know that every single time an elite pitcher goes against Kansas City, we have to have this talk. We're like, oh, Kansas City doesn't strike out. Well, they also just like don't get extra base hits ever. That's
And
just like
also, Sale strikes out so many guys to begin with. He's still going to strike out a batter per inning or more.
like are you going to
Even
be upset if
yeah,
he goes 8 innings pitched and only gets 7 Ks as opposed to 9 Ks? No. And sure,
no.
maybe Billy Butler grounds out to short instead of striking out, but he's still an automatic out. An out is an out. And I
Well,
mean,
I mean, you do get points for the strikeouts, but I still think Sale is going to get enough of them where he's an elite option tonight.
yeah, I think that I mean, obviously strikeouts are what we're going for, but we're also, especially, I think now it's worth mentioning that a lot of people's action has started to transfer over to DraftKings, and maybe some of our listeners are new to DraftKings. We should talk a little bit more about their scoring system when we do these breakdowns. But on DraftKings, you're really rewarded for your pitcher limiting base runners. Like, you lose points for walks, you lose points for hits, and
Hmm.
I mean, the bottom half of Kansas City's order is just bad. It's just really bad. And Sale, he's just going to limit base runners. There's no way Kansas City gets more. I mean, if we're doing a range of outcomes, what would you give the likelihood that he gives up 3 or more runs? Like maybe 2%, 3%?
No, come on,
No,
not
that's
2 or
that's
3%.
okay. That's being ridiculous, but
Like
still pretty low.
20%. Yeah, it's a low percentage.
Yeah.
I mean, he has a good chance of really just kind of dominating this game.
Yeah.
And especially with Guthrie opposite him and going into US Cellular, he's going to get some run support. He's got a really good chance of taking home a win.
Yeah, Guthrie is bad.
Guthrie's one of the worst veteran pitchers in all of Major League Baseball.
This is seriously how bad it is today. I haven't even looked at Vegas lines yet. That's how not good I was feeling today. I've just been out of it. I also beat Michael Leone at FIFA 3-1, just for anyone who's keeping track of that scoreboard. He's the second biggest favorite of the day. Tehran is the biggest favorite.
Yeah, and that's kind of part of the reason why I'm so, I don't know, flip-floppy on it. I know my system has Tehran just a hair ahead of Sale, and he's a lot cheaper. It's just the thing is, in a FanDuel cash game, Tehran definitely has a lower floor than Sale does. There's a little bit more risk with him. So it's do you really want to risk it in a 50-50 on FanDuel, or do you just want to go with the safe guy in Sale? But you can fit in a lot of extra bats if you just go down the Tehran, so it's tempting.
Yeah, and I mean, that might be the right way to go if you're you know what, I think the Nationals just destroy Morales. I think they put up a bunch of runs, which I probably, if we're looking at a probability scale, Texas or Detroit and Colorado or in Washington are probably going to be the highest scoring offenses today. And those offenses, they're so good that their good players cost a lot of money. So I wouldn't blame you if you went with Tehran, but I'm going with Sale personally in my cash games, just because I think he's a better pitcher too.
I think too with Sale, it's not even if you take Tehran, yeah, you're going to be able maybe to fit in the $4,400 Jason Worth or the $4,200 Anthony Rendon, which don't do. They're way too expensive. But if you go with a cheaper pitcher, maybe you can. But if you go with Sale, there's a lot of bad pitchers going today. There's a lot of good matchups, even outside of cores, where you're going to be able to fill in some pretty good values and some pretty good players, even if you're spending big on Sale. There's going to be some good Cleveland bats, some good Minnesota bats, some good White Sox bats.
Oh, I'm going to just be torturing myself all the way up until lineup lock over Gomes versus Ramos. Because Gomes is an auto play for me versus lefties, but Ramos is in cores with the platoon, which that's just a really hard decision to make in my opinion.
Yeah, I reran it. I want to see where Gomes ended up ranking relative to Ramos now that they're really close. I have Gomes 25th overall today and Ramos 17th overall. So it's that's
close. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some secondary pitching options. This is a good conversation for us to have actually, because we're going to be on opposite ends where you want to play Elias and I think Neese is the play in that game. And I don't even like John Neese that much.
I'm actually a Neese fan and I like Neese, but you have to consider that he's going over into the American League, so there's going to be that extra DH that he's not used to facing. So you have to factor that in. And even though Neese is a lefty and Seattle's very left-handed, the lineup today does not have as many lefties as it normally does. They actually shoved quite a few righties in there. They got Bloomquist leading off. They have Hart in there. Smoke's a switch hitter.
So terrified of
Zunino.
Willie Bloomquist.
I know. I mean,
terrified.
It's not like they're like good right-handers, but
Can
still.
you explain to me why Seattle hates Mike Zunino? Why does he bat so low? Like he's got to be he's a better power hitter than Corey Hart is at this stage in their careers, right? And Corey Hart gets to bat cleanup sometimes.
Have to think. I mean, they have Stephen Romero batting 5th. Like, why? I don't know. I feel like Zunino should be ahead of him. Like, I don't know. Zunino batting 9th doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. It's not like he's been great this year, but I don't know.
Yeah. But the reason that I like Nice is, yeah, the park shift. I think he's a better pitcher than Elias, which you probably disagree with me, and I bet your system probably has Elias a little bit higher. But I mean, maybe the reason I think that is, for a while I thought he was bad, and I was taking hitters against him, and they were just doing nothing. They were just doing nothing. And anytime I did this yesterday, like on draft day, I used Drew Smiley. Anytime you can get a left-handed pitcher going up against a lineup whose best hitters are primarily left-handed, it kind of leaves the opposing lineup at, like, you just kind of have to deal with it, because you're not taking Robinson Cano out. You're not taking James Jones out, who's been really good. Like, you can't take out these really good hitters because they're not platoon players, but they're still not great versus lefties.
Yeah.
So, like, targeting left-handed pitchers versus Cleveland and Seattle, I think, if you did it all season long, would definitely be a plus EV move. And Nice is an above-average lefty.
I would agree with that. And I do think Nice is a good play today. I just think Elias is better. He's playing at home. The Mets lineup just isn't good, but I don't know.
And Elias is the favorite.
And Elias is cheaper, so I mean, on DraftKings DraftKings,
Nice is $200 cheaper.
Is he? Oh, yeah, he is. I was looking at FanDuel pricing where Elias is just ridiculously cheap. I'm definitely doing a GPP with him tonight.
Yeah. That's probably not.
Yeah, I think they're both good options, but I like Elias a little better.
Okay, and like that is completely fair. I don't blame you at all there. I just don't. I am undecided on that, but I think I'm probably running Nice out.
And I think we need to throw Willie Peralta into that conversation of like potential second pitchers on DraftKings. He's cheaper than the both of them. And Cincinnati's lineup is really kind of ugly tonight. There's no Jay Bruce is out of the lineup. Obviously, Votto is hurt. It's really just an ugly lineup. Donald Lutz is batting 5th. Schumacher is batting 2nd. Ramon Santiago is in there. Like, it's a bad lineup tonight.
Derek, do you watch 30 Rock?
I've seen a few episodes, but I never really got into it.
Okay, so there's this character named Lutz in 30 Rock who is just like the worst, most pathetic human being alive. So every single time Donald Lutz is in a lineup, I'm super inclined to just make fun of the decision that there is someone named Donald Lutz playing professional baseball and it's expected to hit home runs. Because from what I can tell, he's also not that good, like, at all.
No, he's not. Not even a little bit.
The thing about Peralta is that you see his pitches and you like look at his fan graphs, like his pitch velocity and his pitch values, and you expect him to be like a big strikeout pitcher, and he strikes out like 6 batters per 9. Like he's one of those guys who has the velocity, similar to Eovaldi, where he has the velocity but just can't turn it into strikeouts.
See, I think he's a better comp to Henderson Alvarez because he has the velocity, but it's mostly a sinker is what he's using. Like he uses the four-seamer a little more, but when you use a sinker, it's more to generate ground balls and like it's not a strikeout pitch, you know?
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I think you see a lot of times it's deceiving. You see a lot of guys who throw 95 or 96, especially recently. It seems like there's like a few of them in the majors. And you're like, why aren't they striking out more? And it's because it's a two-seamer, not a four-seamer. Like, it makes a big difference.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely, that's valuable to know. I'm still just learning this stuff, and it kind of sucks that like I'm really immersing myself into baseball for the first time and finally getting comfortable with it. And in like a month, I'm not going to give baseball a second thought for another 6 months. Like that's going to be something that happens. So my learning will take a sharp turn. Is there anyone else that we need to mention? I think pitching is pretty simple tonight. I think you decide between Sale and Tehran. It's looking like Sale for both of us on FanDuel. Then on DraftKings draft day, you take one of them, and then you find a second guy that you like, sort of in between to me, it's in between Nice and Elias, and Peralta maybe is a little bit longer of a shot.
I'll just throw out Matt Shoemaker as another option. Probably not a guy I'm going to be on, but Baltimore going like a big park drop going into Anaheim, and he's going to have the platoon against a lot of those guys. So I think he's a decent like contrarian option, but not before some of these other guys we've talked about.
Okay, let's start talking about hitters then. Start talking about stacks. I think tonight is it's an interesting night with Coors Field because we're getting like the JV Coors lineup with Morneau on the DL and Tulo not in. And Pfister is a ground ball pitcher, and those type of pitchers tend to play better at Coors than fly ball or just like even distribution pitchers do. So I don't feel super great about taking anyone outside of Dickerson or Blackman against him. Like, I definitely don't think this is a night to just be like, take Arenado, take Charlie freaking Culberson. Like,
I completely agree with that. I think I'm going Cargo, though, before Blackman or Dickerson. Cargo is 3,700 on FanDuel.
Yeah, on FanDuel, he's cheap. Someone just asked Verlander on DraftKings. No, don't.
There's just too many other options, and he hasn't looked right. Don't risk it. There's enough other guys where you don't need to do that, especially like guys right at his price level. Like all the guys we were talking about are like the same price. So I think you pass on him.
Yep. So I actually think that I think the Nationals are a good team to stack, but if you look on like a position by position basis, they're actually more expensive than the Tigers. Like outside of Miguel Cabrera, they're all more expensive than like or comparably priced to the Tigers, who are a better offense. And I mean, Nuno's bad. Like he's really bad. And we talked about this with McCarthy last night. You and I did about how gaining McCann's pitching skills really helped McCarthy sort of work through some stuff because McCann has been the best defensive catcher in baseball. Well, like Nuno just lost that, so I can't imagine that is helping him at all. Like that's not a good thing.
No, it's definitely not a good thing. And Miguel Montero is not nearly as good of a defensive catcher as McCann is. But moving to the National League does help him because he's not going to have to face a DH, so it kind of hedges against that a little bit. Actually, it looks like Montero has been really good this year. Kind of a small sample, but he's an above average guy. Not McCann level, but he's not bad either.
Yeah.
And I don't think Nuno's as bad in general as people tend to think he is. I mean, he's not good. He's got control issues. He gives us some flies, but he's not a bad pitcher. He's got decent stuff.
I think he's worse than you think he is, for sure. Like, I love to take... Basically, I just like taking sluggers against fly ball pitchers. And Nuno, like, I think a lot of his numbers are probably influenced from pitching his home games at Yankee Stadium, where he was just giving up dong after dong to right-handed batters. Like, I mean, people probably remember that that Baltimore Orioles game where, like, Adam Jones, Nelson Cruz, J.J. Hardy, and Steve Pearce, like, donged off him in, like a 2-inning span. But yeah, like he just to me is not a good pitcher. Basically, like I'll target him.
He's below average for sure, but he's not like one of the worst guys going today.
I'll target him almost every time out with power right-handed bats, and that's like the entire top of the Tigers lineup.
Yeah, and I do think Tigers are good plays today, but it sounds like they're like your top non-core stack, and I don't know if I'm necessarily on board with that. I'll probably wind up with some of them. Like, I think Miguel Cabrera, I think, is going to be in some of my lineups, especially if I go with Tehran on FanDuel or something like that. But I think you can really target. I think TJ House is a good guy to target tonight with Minnesota bats because he throws from like his low three-quarters arm angle, and it's like mostly sinker slider. So his platoon splits are just huge, and Minnesota just loaded up with righties today. So I think they might be able to do some damage.
Oh, Chris Calabello is back from the minors. That's fun.
It's not like any of those guys are particularly good. So like, I don't know.
Dozier and Plouffe.
Dozier and Plouffe are good, yeah, for sure. Dozier and Plouffe are like guys I'm going to be probably trying to get in my lineup. But it's not like it's a team you're going to like stack heavily. But there's definitely some guys in there that you can put in and expect some good production from.
Okay. What do you think about taking the lefty White Sox bats against Guthrie. Eaton, Dunn, Connor Gillespie, I don't know how you say it.
Yeah. I think they're a really solid option tonight. Guthrie's not good. It's in U.S. Cellular Field, so I think they're going to be able to do some damage too. That's kind of why I think I'm leaning towards Sale tonight, is because there's going to be so many like good kind of cheaper options to fill in. It's not like you're going to be struggling to find bats tonight, so you can spend up on Sale.
Yeah, I think that tonight. I think what tonight is actually probably good for is splitting lineups in your cash games, because I mean, right away you start out with the Ramos versus Gomes question, and this is how we'll transition to talking about positions here. So starting at catcher, I mean, I haven't.
They're your top two guys. I mean,
yeah, like I haven't looked at
they're the only
every
ones
team,
in consideration.
But yeah, for cash games, I don't see how you could use anyone else, because like honestly, it sounds weird, but how you don't get Gomes batting third all that often for his price tag.
No.
So when you get it, it's kind of silly to not take advantage of it, in my opinion.
It's silly unless you have Wilson Ramos in cores against Franklin Morales. Like, I think it's a close call between them two today, and I think they're definitely your two cash game options.
Yeah.
And I think splitting them maybe is a wise choice, getting some exposure to both.
Yeah, and I will say, for tournaments, I do like Mike Zunino anytime he goes up against a lefty. He's batting ninth, which is like the worst. But for tournaments, I just think like I know on draft day, every single time they're against a lefty, I use him at catcher in like a couple tournaments.
Who was that?
Mike Zunino. He just has such good power versus left-handed pitching.
But against Nice, batting ninth, really?
Just as a tournament option, I wouldn't use him I wouldn't use him in cash games. But
as a tournament option, if you're like counting on a home run or something, then okay. But I just think as an EV play, he's not a very good one.
No, But like, and that's just like a Davis Maddock bias play too. Is like every time I've used him against a lefty, he's like he did good against whatever left-hander they faced yesterday, and I had him.
As a GPP play, I like Buster Posey today. He's getting a big park jump, and he's against Cliff Lee. So a lot of people are going to avoid him just because he's against Cliff Lee, even though the rest of the matchup is really good, where he has the platoon advantage. He has the good park. Cliff Lee is it's his first start back, so he's a little bit of an unknown. Philly's bullpen is not good. So there's a lot of factors aside from Lee working in Posey's favor. He's not a guy I'm taking in cash games, but as, just someone just to avoid the whole cores thing today in GPPs, he's a good guy.
Word. Yeah, I don't think we need to talk that much about catchers. I think that it's a pretty simple position to talk about today. So let's move on and talk about the middle infield. Like looking at Rendon, he's available at second and third on a couple sites. Like how would you grade him as like a must play? Like, do you think Rendon is a guy that are you considering him a piece that you work around and try and get value guys to fit in with him, or no?
Not really. It depends on the site too. Like, what does he cost on DraftKings? On FanDuel, he's just so expensive. I think it's going to be unlikely I have him.
I think he's more reasonable on DraftKings. I'm pulling it up right now.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at. He's 4,600 on DraftKings, so he's reasonable enough.
Choose between him and Kinsler. That's kind of what the decision you have to make. And even Dozier to an extent.
Yeah, I would take him. Where he qualifies at second base, he would be my top second baseman today, ahead of Dozier and ahead of Kinsler. Just speaking from like a price insensitive standpoint.
Yeah. Okay.
But I think on sites where he's really expensive, like on FanDuel, I do think Dozier is a really good play against TJ House. I think Kinsler is a good play. Those are really mostly the three guys that I think I would be looking at.
I think Kinsler is a nice way to get exposure versus Nuno without paying the Miguel Cabrera $6K price tag on DraftKings, or overpaying for like JD Martinez, or paying for Austin Jackson, who just like sucks, just strikes out all the time and just sucks.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's hard though because you do have to pass up some other pretty quality options.
Yeah, if you're punting, choose between Ryan Rayburn and Espinosa.
Oh yeah, where Rayburn qualifies at second, definitely he's an option.
He's been so bad this year. Like, he's just been terrible.
He's gone through periods like that before too, and a lot of it is like, how many at bats does he have this year? He can't have more than 200 plate appearances. Like,
No, he probably doesn't. I mean, he was playing every day there for a while Kipnis was on the DL, and he was bad.
Yeah,
but that's because he can't hit right-handed pitching.
I would definitely take him before Espinosa though.
You would take Rayburn over Espinosa?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, like batting eighth, it's hard, especially on a night when there's so many options. Like taking a guy in the bottom third of the order is tough because there's a real loss in value from a loss of expected at bats.
Yeah. Okay. Second base is tough tonight. It's like, I think your options. I would put Kinsler ahead of Rendon just because I think Kinsler is a good way to get exposure to the Tigers. Then I would say Rendon. Then I would say Dozier, then probably Rayburn as another option.
Yeah, I can see Kinsler as an alternative option, like just to get exposure to that game if you want it. But from a pure value standpoint, I don't think he compares to Rendon.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about shortstop. Do you want to fight about Jordy Mercer, or do you just want to admit that he's good?
When are we going to get over this? It's not even like he's against a bad pitcher tonight. It's Hyunjin Ryu. He's batting seventh. It's in PNC Park. Come on.
No, I'm joking.
Oh my God. I'm waiting for the Dodgers to go in.
Cardi.
Kershaw's not going to be. Davis to come on our Skype chat and be like, Mercer autoplay today, lefty on the mat.
Derek, that was a great rant. I don't think anybody heard it. You are cutting out super bad right now. Either that or I am.
Damn it. It might be. I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh well.
So here's the thing with Jordy Mercer. Also, the Pirates are going to Coors later this week versus lefties. So like you can just know that part of my lineup is already filled out. Like Mercer will be auto locked. He's not an auto play tonight. I don't think
he's not an option tonight.
He's definitely an option, but he's not an auto play. Tell me who I like. This is how bad it is with me and Mercer, and it's just because I'm in this feud with you. Really, is like I saw Hyunjin Ryu, like lefty, like locking Mercer into all these lineups. Who are you using at shortstop?
I'm probably going to be using Ian Desmond where possible. He's one of the nationals that are reasonably priced, it seems, across the industry. So Desmond's he's definitely my top option. Where I don't have him, I can see going with maybe Jose Reyes, although he's more expensive, or a little bit cheaper. I think Asdrubal Cabrera is a really good play tonight. He's batting second against Chris Johnson. So
I was joking. I actually have Desmond everywhere.
And I don't think like a really cheap option. I'm assuming he's really cheap. He just came back recently, but Danny Santana's batting leadoff tonight.
He's not. He's like not actually that cheap.
Oh, he's
anywhere,
not.
I don't think. Yeah, because he was so hot before he got put on the DL, and then I don't think that the sites adjust while the guys are hurt.
3,400 on DraftKings, 3,100 on FanDuel. Yeah, so he's not cheap. I do think he's a pretty good option, but probably not for that price.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of simple at shortstop. Like without Tulo, you don't have that question. I would sites where Dozier is eligible there. I think like a Rendon Dozier at the middle infield. That's pretty nice.
That's sexy. I like that.
Yeah, because Desmond, what is he batting? I guess I don't have the lineup in front of me. Is he batting sixth like he normally is?
He's batting sixth. I'd take Desmond ahead of Dozier, but where Dozier's shortstop eligible, he's like right behind him.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Let's talk about the corner spots. First base is kind of weird tonight. Like, you can pay up for Miguel Cabrera if you want, but like specifically on DraftKings, that's pretty hard to do with him being $6,000. On draft day, I know that he's also super pricey, and so that's kind of hard to do. And everyone knows that he's a good play tonight. So if you want to make that decision, that's fine. But let's talk about some other options. First guy that kind of jumped out to me on FanDuel was Freddie Freeman for 3.6 versus Tom Kohler. I know there's a little bit of weather concerns, but I mean Freeman he's kind of a boring play, but he has good power. He does have big splits where he hits right-handers really well. It's nice that he's left-handed because he's an option so often versus right-handed pitching.
Yeah, Kohler's not a particularly good one. Although I'll go on the record saying that I could see Kohler becoming a decent pitcher at some point. He's got some pretty decent stuff. He's not there right now. He's not using it well enough. He's a guy definitely to target, target against. But eventually, maybe Kohler. Yeah. Just so I have that in my back pocket.
Okay.
But yeah, Freeman's a good play tonight. I think both of your White Sox guys are good plays tonight, Abreu and Dunn. Although Dunn is just...
here's my thing. Adam Dunn is like a big philosophical question about like how you approach daily fantasy baseball. Because if you look at his numbers, if you just look at his WOBA and his ISO and all that stuff, he looks like a great play like all the time. Like actually in a projection model, he'll look really good versus right-handed pitching a lot of the time. But the problem with using him in cash games is that as a 3-outcome hitter, it's really hard to trust him no matter what the price is because he strikes out so often that it's hard for me to use him in cash games because there's just such a good chance you're going to take the -1.
Yeah, I talked about that actually. I wrote him up in the article today in the Daily Diamond, and basically I compared it to yesterday where both he and Chris Carter were really good plays, and both of them are kind of like these 3 true outcome guys. And Carter had a great game. He scored like 10 FanDuel points, and Dunn scored 1. And that's just kind of what you need to expect with guys like that. They're either going to have a really good game, and they're going to dong or do something good, or maybe they do absolutely nothing and they strike out twice. So it's hard in cash games. I don't know. I haven't developed really like a firm philosophy as to what to do with those kind of guys yet. I think just when the price is good enough and the matchup is good enough, I tend to be playing them, but I don't know if that's optimal.
See, I just avoid Dunn. Dunn is because of his low price tag, he sort of ends up in our optimizer tool a lot. Like he shows up as a guy that is really preferable to play a lot, and I just don't play him.
Projections it's the 50th percentile projection, but a guy like Dunn, there's like a much wider variance around that 50th percentile projection than there is for anybody else, just because of the type of player that he is.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that a lot of people who are watching this show have also read Bales's book, and sort of the conclusion that Jonathan comes to in his baseball section is that home runs are good, obviously, but that you should try and get as many home run hitters in your lineup as possible. But to me, I don't know if that actually works as a cash game strategy because it's the type of guys who hit a lot of home runs normally
also strike out a lot. And
it's a correlation.
We had this
thing.
discussion when I finished reading the book, and I don't think I agreed with his whole point about that because home runs are like easier to predict and they're like more stable from year to year. But that doesn't necessarily mean that on a daily basis you should be targeting those guys. I think it's more about price point and variability in the overall projection than it is about how stable a certain stat is from year to year.
Yeah, and I just don't think that Dunn fits in that category of a cash game player. Like I joke a lot about how terrible Joey Votto is for daily. He's never driven in a run ever. Like I refuse to believe it, but he's actually And I think there's more of a clear line between GPP play and a cash game play on FanDuel where you get negatives for outs than there is on DraftKings. I think there's more wiggle room for that on DraftKings. But seriously, like tonight, if we think that Guthrie gets knocked around, which both of us do, there's a chance that Adam Dunn goes 0 for 5. That minus 1.25 is the worst thing to look at in the history of fantasy sports. And I can't bring myself to roster Dunn. I understand that we'll probably have this fight later, and that Dan, Mr. Tuttle, will tell me that I'm an idiot and being too rigid, and that he's in the optimizer tool. But I just don't think that's a safe cash game play. I won't use him.
The optimizer tool that we're going to be launching pretty soon, and that we've been using internally, it's going to give you the optimal play, but based on the 50th percentile projection. There's going to be variability around it, and that doesn't necessarily mean that for cash games it's the right play, because you might not need a guy to be so boom or bust in the cash game, just to double your money. Like, you don't need 10 points from Adam Dunn to cash a game. You might be fine with 4 or 5 points from, somebody else and who's a little bit more likely to get those 4 or 5 points.
Yeah. Okay.
Let me throw out Dan Johnson as a cheap punt play tonight at first base.
Will you like? I couldn't even. I opened up his Fangraphs page when I did the write up on Sunday. Can you tell me who he is? What is he like Kila Kaiahue? Is he a quad A guy who hits home runs or is he?
That's actually a really good comparison. For years, he was a sabermetric darling where he would hit a lot of home runs, but would never really get that shot in the majors. Almost like Chris Davis was for years. He has the power. No one really gave him a shot. Whenever he did, it would kind of be sporadic and he would suck. So it's kind of hard to get a feel for him and whether or not he's actually capable of handling major league pitching because he completely demolishes minor leaguers. But he's never really gotten that look that he needs in the majors for us to really say for sure whether he can handle it. But he seems to be holding his own now, and he's so cheap, and the matchup's good.
This seems counterintuitive, but punting first base is actually, I think, a really good strategy because what you're doing with first baseman a majority of the time is paying a lot of money for a chance at 1 home run. You're paying up for Brandon Moss for a chance at 1 home run. You're paying Freddie for... And if you can do the same thing with a guy who costs $2,200, that is way better than punting a shortstop guy who you're hoping for a single and a run scored.
Yeah, when you pay for Miguel Cabrera or for Freddie Freeman or for Jose Abreu or for whoever, you need them to deliver their projected total. Otherwise, you're just wasting so much money.
Yeah, ask everyone who played Adrian Beltre yesterday.
Oh, I was one of them.
Yeah. I took him on... This is something I'm not super huge on about. I'm playing a lot more volume on DraftKings now. And I took Adrian Beltre yesterday. So at the end of the day, when I pulled up my contest page and it's telling me that I'm winning $0.00, not necessarily a huge fan of that new feature in that specific instance. That's not super great.
Yeah, I think yeah. Yeah, okay. I don't even want to talk about it. Just yesterday didn't happen, we're moving on.
All right. Are there any other first basemen we need to mention?
I think we've talked about a lot of them. I mean, there's other options, but really that's kind of
guys. I'll say I also like Carlos Santana. I know you hate that he has first base eligibility on FanDuel now, but I actually think he might be a decent play against this Chris Johnson fellow.
I would agree. I like Carlos Santana quite a bit, and I forgot that he is first base. I hate him because he's not at the same talent level as a lot of first basemen. So it's hard to put him in when he can only be a first baseman. Mm-hmm. But the matchup is good today, and he's a pretty good player. He's just not like Abreu, Mickey, Goldschmidt, Ortiz good. Yeah. So it's just hard. The position really, that's restrictive.
All right. Talking about third base, I actually haven't heard this name mentioned by anybody anywhere yet, but Nick Castellanos is actually I'm looking at using him over Zimmerman as a cheap way to get Tigers exposure, and maybe fit in some other nationals because of that. Yeah, you're probably not going to be on board with this.
I'm not. I mean, he's batting 6th, so right away on a day when there's so many options just around baseball. Anyone batting 6 to 9, I'm gonna have a hard time playing unless it's like Wilson Ramos in.
He's just so cheap, dude. Castellanos is. Oh, I just saw this that Eugenio Suarez was batting up higher than normal.
He's a solid option tonight, as a puntier shortstop kind of thing.
Okay, but yeah, I do really like. In general, I seem to be higher on Castellanos than most daily players, and it's just because he hasn't hit that many home runs this year, so he's not super high on anyone's radar, but he's actually been a lot better than ever. If you go, guarantee you, everyone listening to the show, if you went and pulled up his Fangraphs page, you would be really surprised by how not terrible he's been.
Yeah, I just think it's hard to get off Zimmerman today because he's one of the more reasonably priced nationals, and aside from Jason Worth, he's probably the best. So I'm going to have a hard time not going Zimmerman today.
Yeah, it also, it's also site dependent. Like, and I just haven't
Uh-huh.
decided. I haven't decided what I'm doing with Jason Worth and all of these. Like, I truly have made no decision on how much cores and how much Nationals exposure I've done. Like, my lineups aren't done, so I'm just sort of delivering my thought process as we go through these. Are
Yeah.
there other third basemen you want to mention?
Yeah, I mean, we just mentioned him. Carlos Santana is definitely a good option where he's third base eligible. Trevor Plouffe in the same game, also a good option. I think a good like punt play, he's got to be cheap. He hasn't been on my radar for a long time now, but Kelly Johnson is batting fifth tonight with a lot of the Yankees out of the order with Tex and McCann out of there. So he's batting fifth at home in lefty-friendly Yankee Stadium against Mikolas. So I think he's 2,300 on FanDuel. So he's a good punt option.
Oh, actually, someone just messaged me and said that. Well, someone. It's obviously Drew. Just messaged me and said that he didn't think that Castellanos was going to play because they're going to maybe start moving Miggy back to third and having Victor Martinez play first base. So, because there's not a Tigers lineup out yet, I guess.
No, there's not. Okay.
So let's talk about outfield. And for FanDuel players, there's one really big question you have to answer tonight that's going to depend on like the rest of your lineup construction. It is, are you going to play Shin-Soo Choo at 2,700? Choo hasn't reached base safely, I think, since like 2011. I don't know if he's actually reached base since then. So he's like, to say that he's been terrible is honestly kind, and is the cold flag raised up for him on the Batman projections, Derek?
Oh, absolutely. It's raised up. He's batting, or he's woba-ing. Oh my god, I can't believe I just said that.
Woba-ing.
Yeah, like almost 100 points lower than his projection over like the past 3 weeks.
But to be fair, let's just mention that so was Jose Bautista, and he had a pretty good series this weekend.
So I think right now I'm leaning towards yes on Choo. But I've been burned so many times by him. But I mean, his peripherals aren't that far off, aside from just not running and a low batting average on balls in play, which could potentially be just fluky, or it could be something. But
I'm gonna do it.
I want to get a look at him and like see if there's anything he's doing mechanically that's just like wrong, because he's just been so bad lately. But the matchup is so good and he's so cheap. He's gonna be so hard to pass up.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm fine. I'm just going to take him just so that Tuttle will finally be proud of me.
I think I'm going to take him because at 2,700, even if he does nothing, it's not like he's going to strike out a lot. So maybe, well, actually...
Yeah, I mean, like, I take Christian Yelich at like $1,000 more all the time, and his best case scenario as a player is like a slightly worse version of Choo.
Yeah, like if you get a -1 out of Choo, like, all right. When he was like 3,300 or 3,500, like that sucks. But at 2,700, he's just barely more than a punt play. So if he does nothing, it's not like it's going to kill you.
He's cheaper than Nava. He's cheaper than Daniel Nava, who like exists to make the FanDuel lineup system work.
What does Nava cost now? He was minimum yesterday.
Yeah, he bumped up $600 today.
There we go. Not on my radar today, but
yeah.
Okay.
You know where I'm actually having trouble making lineups today is draft day, which normally is not the case. It's normally actually pretty easy to make lineups there. But that's
I need to start playing some more draft day.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we probably have to. We've gone through a bunch of positions, and here let's run through a list of outfielders real quick. Any Tigers outfielder, Nationals outfielders, those guys are good if you can fit them in. Austin Jackson, I know he strikes out a lot, but he's cheap. Who else do you like?
I think Carlos Gonzalez is a really good option tonight just because he has such a huge platoon split. It's in cores. And even though Fister is good, I just think the rest of the matchup is good enough, especially given his price tag. That Cargo's a really good play. He's batting cleanup tonight with some of the other guys out. So
yeah, Cargo is a great play on FanDuel.
I think Carlos Beltran, really good play tonight. He's batting cleanup also in that little bit of a watered down lineup, but that means he's got a premium spot. Mikolas isn't particularly good. Home field advantage, short left or right field porch for him in Yankee Stadium. So I like him a lot. I want to say I'm not going to say him. Forget it. I want to say Willingham, but he's been so bad lately, and the risk could potentially be a reason for that. So just don't do Willingham. Um, I like Grady Sizemore as a punt. He's been good since coming to Philly, even though it's a small sample size. But he's leading off. The first 4 batters all have the platoon advantage. I'm really just not a big Vogelsong fan. It's a good park, so I think Sizemore, given his price tag, especially on DraftKings, I think he'll probably wind up in some of my lineups.
Okay. We can do a little bit of industry talk before we go here. I mean, just in terms of transferring volume, I think we're already starting to see it happen. And I like sort of the direction I'm going is I'm just going to start playing more on Elite and playing more on Draft Day. Like there's such a big hole left by the absence of Draft Street, and so we'll try and do better on the show about for a while it was sort of when we'd go through the show, we talk about FanDuel, DraftKings, and Draft Street, and definitely like everyone in the chat, give us feedback about like the if you have questions about playing on the new sites or if you want us to discuss a certain site more or anything, like let us know. So we're all going through this together, and I mean, Derek, this is the first time you've got to go through a tumultuous thing in the industry. I still remember when Daily Joust closed, which is probably kind of crazy to some folks out there.
Yeah, I was doing a little bit last year when that closed, but it's not like I was as immersed as I am this year with the whole thing. So
yeah. All right. I don't think David is anywhere around, but we're gonna guarantee dongs anyways. So I'll let you guarantee some dongage.
Oh boy. Give me 1 sec. You do yours first.
Okay, well, I mean, my obvious one, I'm not gonna go with Miguel Cabrera or Jason Worth because I don't think that's helping anybody. So
no.
I'm gonna choose between Rendon and Zimmerman, and I'm gonna say Rendon. And then my under the radar is gonna be Eugenio Suarez.
For a dong?
For a dong.
Maybe for a couple singles.
This is making me miss Eric Bedard, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Because his last start was when he just got destroyed by the Tigers, and he's not around anymore for us to pick on. So all of my hatred is having to transfer to Nuno.
Poor Eric Bedard. Okay. I'll go obvious Jose Abreu or Adam Dunn, but I'll go Abreu. And under the radar, I'll go with Carlos Beltran.
Okay. Cool. What about mistakes? What mistake are you gonna make tonight? What are you gonna regret?
I'm going to regret whichever of Sale or Tehran I don't go with on FanDuel. So maybe I'll just split them, and then maybe I'll regret Elias just because I have this irrational fear of the Mets these days. It seems like anytime I play someone against the Mets, they get to him. So.
Dude, I mean, I
might regret not having enough Tigers. I don't know how much Tigers exposure I'm gonna have.
You will regret that for sure. I'm just letting you know.
I feel like it's hard to get exposure to them. Like as a whole, like as a collective unit, they're good, but it's not like any one player aside from Miggy like really.
Not.
I am.
Oh, well, there he is.
People in the chat are saying that sound isn't working.
What about now?
What about now, guys? Can you hear us?
There we go.
Well, the show is done, David. If you wanna take back over.
Yeah. So I was pushing some buttons clumsily, and pulled out the camera cord, so you can't see me. So, but I am still here. You just can't see me. But anyways, tomorrow we'll have Drew Dinkmeyer on the show for the first time, and it seems like quite a while. So Drew, Davis, Cardi will be back tomorrow, 5 Eastern. And we'll make sure that we get some elite drafts. Davis, one of the things you were talking about industry-wise, you're right. There is a gap left for sharp salaries, and
Elite has those. Like that is definitely something that drives me to playing on Elite.
yeah, and elite. That's kind of the market that they're going after, and I think the market's open because honestly, draft day doesn't really have that sharp salaries.
No, you can play an all-star lineup on. I have Ramos, Cabrera, Rendon, Zimmerman, Worth without punting the other slots. Like you can play who you want to play.
So one of the questions I had for Twitter the other day was if you could have DraftKings incorporate one of DraftStreet's features, what would it be? And a lot of people said pricing algorithm. So there is a market left open. I've talked to Grant. I know he's going to attack it. Honestly, a little surprised that a site like Fantasy Feud hasn't gone hard. I mean, Fantasy Feud was like DraftStreet Lite.
Dude, I liked playing college football on Feud last year.
Yeah, because
I'm probably going to play college football there a lot.
There's lots of positions, but they just haven't done anything. So it makes zero sense. But Grant and his team, talking to him earlier, they've got some stuff coming out that's going to be really exciting. So we'll get back to the drafts tomorrow. We'll also make sure we have some Elite Cup updates for you guys tomorrow, 5 Eastern. And we will see you then. Good luck tonight, guys.